Hi, this is James from Praagh, and thank you very much for joining me again for another installment of Ask JVP, where I get to answer all of your inquiries from social media pages. And I have so many questions, and this one comes quite often. So this is from Florence from Twitter, and she's asked me, James, what are the most influential books you have ever read to help you on your spiritual journey? Not an easy one, but what I did, Florence, I went through my library, they have behind me, and I love books. And I remember when I first started doing my work, I would go to a metaphysical bookstore in Los Angeles called the Bodhi Tree every weekend and sit for hours and hours and hours in the corner just reading, taking as much as I could. So I went through my library here and I picked out some of the most influential books ever that I've read that really did help me. One of the first ones I'm going to share with you is called Questions and Answers, Fundamentals of Esoteric Science by Manly Palmer Hall. And Manly Palmer Hall is a philosopher who was from Los Angeles and has a society there. And incredible genius of a man. He wrote over 50 books in his lifetime. And incredible. Manly Palmer Hall, anything you can get from Manly Palmer Hall, that'd be great. This is one I have. You can get anything Manly Palmer Hall has done. You can get on Amazon, and definitely all about philosophy, spiritual philosophy. Highly recommend it. Another book about the afterlife, which I found one of the best descriptions of the spirit world, was a book called Life in the World Unseen by Anthony Borgia. And since that book, Life in the World Unseen, which was probably written in late 70s, early 80s, he's come out with several other books about here and the hereafter, Anthony Borgia. Yes. And also more about life in the world unseen, Anthony Borgia. And it was really channeled information about the other side of life, very detailed, and from the work I've done over the past 30 years, it is totally in line with what I've been told from the spirit world about what their world is like. And one of the most influential books on my journey has definitely been any book by White Eagle. White Eagle was a spirit guide brought through by the mediumship of Grace Cook, I believe in the 1940s, and White Eagle, the main guide, would come through and give her inspirations and speeches, talks, would give her inspirations and lectures, and these words were written down and compiled. And there is such an organization called the White Eagle Lodge, which I belonged to for a long time. So any book you find on White Eagle, Spiritual Unfoldment number 1, 2, and 3. Great, incredible books. Really got me to my core, spoke to my soul. And this is one I have in my library called Beautiful Home, Beautiful Road Home. Called Beautiful Road Home. You see that? Yeah. And when you read these words, you will feel the vibration, the frequency, and it will warm you up. I promise you, anything with White Eagle. Incredible vibration. Another book which I loved and really was influential in my journey was The Boy Who Saw True. And this was written in the 1950s, and it was written by Cyril Scott. Cyril Scott, wonderful author. And it really is a touching story about a Victorian boy who was very clairvoyant and would see spirits all the time and talk about them to his parents, and would have visits by his grandfather. And it really demonstrates the children are so open, and great story. Lovely, touching story. I related to the story because, of course, when I was a young boy, I used to see spirit all around. But The Boy Who Saw True. I actually put this on my website back in the 90s, and they republished this book, The Boy Who Saw True. So try to get that one as well. If you're interested in astrology and want to know a little bit about astrology, a wonderful book, a wonderful reference book, which I've used for over 20 years now, is called Heaven Knows What by Grant Louis. And this is a way, in this book, Heaven Knows What, it teaches you how to look for the sun sign and the moon sign, and the relationship between the sun sign of someone and their moon sign. The sun is how you act, and the moon, of course, your emotional self, and putting them together, what that means. Easy way to work on your horoscope, simple. I'm not as bright as I'd like to be with horoscopes and astrology. This book is really easy to follow. Definitely recommend it. Very helpful. I would not be here today if it wasn't for one of my mentors, and maybe one of your mentors. I read her book back in the 80s, and as I read the book and went through the journey with her on this book, it really spoke to my heart, and it brought up a lot of memories, if you will, soul memories. I said, wow, this stuff is true. Inside me, I feel this is so true. And this is before I did any mediumship. I read this book, and it was, again, very influential. And the book is out on a limb. by Shirley MacLaine. And I'll never forget when I was reading this book out in the limb, I went to go see Brian Hurst, the medium who predicted about me doing my work. And I remember the book was sitting there, that I just had read it, and I said, oh, have you seen this book yet? And he goes, I've heard of it, yes. And the spirits came through, and they said to Brian, if James continues this work, one day he'll meet Shirley MacLaine. And sure enough, that has happened, and she's a good friend of mine now. I love her. Really, really wonderful book. If people want to know about the spiritual journey of her life, incredible. Which a lot of you probably have heard about and maybe have read, is one of the most incredible and accurate books, if I can say that, on what happens to the soul in between lives. Wonderful, wonderful book by Michael Newton called Journey of Souls. That is an incredible, detailed description of the afterlife, what happens, how do we prepare for a new life, what happens right after we pass to the other side. So really, really great book. Easy to read, easy to understand. And again, it's like the other books. When you read this material, there's a part of you inside you that, I know this. My soul understands this. I get this. So these are just a few of the books, Florence. These are just a few of the books, because I have a large library here, that have really helped to form my life, my path, and my understanding of the spiritual laws and the spiritual life, and has really helped me to my understanding. So I hope those will help you, and enjoy reading them, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you.